Zenshu episode 9 is arguably as worst case scenario as the episode could have went. We lose our robot pal, who takes over Yunio's role, because ultimately we're trying our best to avoid these plot points from occurring. But when you casually reveal that the ending of the film was Luke being the final void and killing everyone, it is very clear to me that we're building into Naco being the final void this time around, and rather than angry Luke holding a dying princess mad at the world, it's most likely going to be Naco holding a dying Luke mad at the world and probably ending this all, which then probably leads to her waking back up in her own world. And you might want to argue, well then shit, like what's the point? And I feel like at minimum we're building into a bittersweet ending. I mean, we have to, right? I mean, there's no way she was going to stay in this world forever no matter what. But if we're fighting an author who thinks it has to go dark, it has to go, everyone dies, no one gets a happy ever after, right? We probably can't change her story forever. At the end of the day, the author's work is the author's work, whether we like it or not. But I'm almost wondering if we'll end up going the route of Natsuko not being able to save everyone, but maybe not. Like, if she is the final void, right? If she can resist turning into that, a lot of these characters might end up dead, but she might be able to refuse this author's one last request, and, you know, she gets revived and goes back home, whatever it is. But given the fact that she's always respected this author so much, that's been her idol and inspiration. She was working on a romance story back home, and most likely, had she succeeded and not died, she probably would have wrote a dark and pretty shitty romance story. I bet when she goes back home, she's not going to look at her previous idol as influence. She's going to use her own experience with Luke and their love to write something truly beautiful. And if they go that route, it could end up as a more bittersweet ending, but right now, it's about as bad as it could be. Because one character made it to the end in the original film, he had to be the one to sacrifice here. The only other curveball we have is Natsuko herself, but the fact that what was seen as plot points that we avoided are still coming back into play. Our girl's betrayal, trying to self-destruct and destroy the world, that's probably going to try to happen next week or the week after. Just an insane, tragic isekai. I had high hopes for this show, and my expectations have been surpassed multiple times over. Of course, if you want to support my work, see my full thoughts on these amazing Zenshu episodes, we got the Patreon, full length live reactions available exclusively over there if you're so interested. So, I knew we would get something crazy like this, but I thought it was going to be next episode. I thought this episode would be all on Luke, because they did a brilliant thing and characterized and humanized Luke far more than he even was. I have not been a Luke hater. My initial opinions of him were pretty like, dude kind of seemed like an F-boy, I'm not gonna lie, but, you know, over the weeks, I mean, I thought I understood why he fell in love with Natsuko. But actually getting that kind of recap, but from his point of view, and every time he would look at her and see her face more, I understand why last week he was basically Elf, being like, I love you, I love you, I love you, because at the end of the day, it actually feels genuine. I thought it was romantic by the end of last episode, but I just felt like I understood him so much more with this episode. And to build into our girl, terrified, because this author refuses to back down. And it's understandable why she's almost giving up. And when she spills the whole story of what's supposed to happen, to see this little bot, I should have seen a death flag for that thing coming, but I was just so assuming we were going to build into one of the previous deaths. And I think that's what's so brilliant, because when they were building into it, she's like, I need to draw something that can't be replicated. I thought, oh, that's really cool. She's going to draw, like, we're going to go the route of the way she overcomes these obstacles is she'll draw something that's so in her style, it can't be replicated. Because the issue they're currently dealing with is that everything she's drawn up to this point, the voids are repurposing as their own weapons, meaning the voids are getting stronger as they fight them. Which is worrisome, because if we ever want to drop a nuke on them, they might be able to drop a nuke on us the next episode. So the idea that every time she's drawn something, it's been rough, right? It's been rough around the edges. It's an unfinished, it's a work in progress. I thought what we were building into was this was going to be the first drawing of hers that was fully colored, fully finished, and it would just be impossible to replicate. And that probably will be the final thing that we see from her in terms of her drawing. But yeah, like the scribble kind of stopping the self-destruct and then the build into the sacrifice. I mean, I have to imagine Luke will shed the least amount of tears over a robot. I'm not saying he won't care about him, but at the end of the day, probably less destructive than Yunio or, the others. It just crystal clear. But seeing a man and how much he lost and how people still thought he wasn't doing enough. I ain't gonna lie, the original film does sound fire. Like something I would really enjoy. It's interesting because I know dark stuff doesn't always resonate with larger audiences, but it's interesting how this wasn't seen as like a classic film to the degree our MC thinks it is. But I ain't gonna lie. I think we have less than a 20% chance of Luke making out of the show alive. I definitely think, and I'm fully confident, we're building into a reversal of some sort of, instead of Luke holding a dying Natsuko or someone else, she'll be holding a dying him. Not saying it's not possible he might be able to be saved. The only way, though, we could have a positive ending and her going back home is if the author agrees there's a way to make tragedy but not completely hopeless. Which, I gotta be honest, that bitch seems a little crazy and I don't think we're gonna get through to her. But either way, I don't know, man. We are going back home one way or another. I said that from the first episode. That was my thought. And it feels more and more likely that that is going to be the case. Almost like you can't change an author's work, but you can make your own works however you want. And she'll probably have a beautiful romance that will be based on their love, but hopefully a more positive end. I think the best we could ask for at this point is bittersweet. Because right now it feels all but guaranteed a bad, tragic isekai ending is guaranteed. But the optimist in me says bittersweet might be possible. It's a very happy show at face value, but it's got tragedy for days. This was incredible. I thought we were going to have a chill episode. I thought we were going to humanize, characterize Luke. We'd slap our emotions next week, but instead they bitch slapped me for days within a few minutes. Not going to be the last death we see, is it? You let me know your thoughts, definitely theories down below if you got any. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here. Of course, ring that bell, and like I mentioned, full live reactions over on Patreon. And hey, while you're over there, I'll just give you a video shout out. Alright, so today we got Callum, MJ Jet Cerevis, Shai Kiba, Kieran Wingfield, Noel Neom Gotiv, Rooster, and we also have Drexy. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and get your tissues ready. I think the last 3 episodes are going to be one hell of a stretch. Have a good one.